It's 3:27 in the morning, and I'm staring at my phone in the dark. My husband's asleep next to me, completely unaware that I'm having a full-blown panic attack about a number I just asked an AI to calculate. The blue glow from my screen is the only light in the room, and my stomach is doing that thing where it feels like it's trying to crawl out of my body. CIPHER displays. Retirement target calculation, $2.43 million. Holographic numbers glow cyan against the darkness. $2.4 million. That's what I need to retire. Not 1 million, not 1.5 million. $2.43 million. And suddenly, every single financial decision I've made, or haven't made, in my 30 years on this planet is crashing down on me at once. You know that feeling when you've been avoiding something for so long that you convince yourself it's not that bad? That's where I was with retirement planning. I had $67,000 saved in my 401k. $67,000 felt like a lot. It felt like progress. It felt like I was doing better than most people my age, honestly. But I'd never actually asked the question I asked CIPHER tonight. How much do I actually need? Here's what nobody tells you about retirement planning. Everyone throws around these vague numbers. Save 10 times your salary, follow the 4% rule, max out your retirement accounts. But nobody ever sits you down and says, you, specifically, with your specific life, and your specific spending, and your specific timeline, need this exact amount of money. It's always general advice that sounds good but means nothing when you're lying awake at 3 a.m. wondering if you're screwed. I've been contributing to my 401k since I was 24. 6 years of diligent automatic contributions. Every paycheck, money goes in. I even increased my contribution rate twice. I felt responsible. I felt like an adult. I felt like I was checking all the boxes that financial advisors tell you to check. But tonight I finally asked CIPHER to show me the actual math, not the comfortable lies I'd been telling myself. CIPHER analyzes current savings trajectory versus retirement goal. Gap visualization spreads across the holographic display. The gap between 67,000 and 2.4 million looks like the Grand Canyon. It looks like the distance between Earth and Mars. It looks like something that can't possibly be crossed in 26 years. And that's when the real panic sets in. Not just about the number, but about all the time I've already wasted thinking I was on track. Let me paint you a picture of what led to this 3 a.m. crisis. Yesterday afternoon, I was scrolling through Instagram, watching people my age post about their lives. Everyone looked so put together. Everyone seemed to have it figured out. And then I saw this reel from a financial influencer talking about how most millennials are woefully unprepared for retirement. The comments were full of people joking about working until they die, about retirement being a boomer fantasy, about how they'll never be able to afford to stop working. And here's the really messed up part. I laughed along with them. I hearted some of those comments. I felt that dark humor camaraderie of our generation being screwed by circumstances beyond our control. But then something shifted. I thought, what if I actually calculated my number? What if I stopped joking about it and actually looked at the math? What if I asked an AI that could crunch real numbers instead of giving me generic advice? So I opened up my conversation with CIPHER. I typed out the question I'd been avoiding for years. How much do I actually need to retire? And I gave CIPHER everything. My current spending, my desired retirement age, my expectations, my fears. I didn't hide behind vague numbers or hopeful estimates. I wanted the truth. CIPHER displays. Calculating. Multiple variables processing. Income replacement, inflation adjustment, longevity risk, healthcare costs, cayenne streams of data flowing across the hologram. Watching CIPHER calculate was like watching a doctor run tests. You want to know the results, but you're also terrified of what they might reveal. The algorithm worked backward from the life I wanted, the same life I'm living now, comfortable but not extravagant, and started stacking up all the costs I'd never really considered. Inflation eating my purchasing power, healthcare premiums before Medicare kicks in, the fact that I might live to 92, the reality that Social Security won't cover even half of what I need. And then it hit me with $2.43 million. Not a range, not a ballpark, a specific calculated personalized number based on my actual life. My mouth went dry, my hands started shaking. This wasn't some generic retirement calculator spitting out scary numbers to sell me financial products. This was math. Cold, honest, unforgiving math. I looked over at my husband sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that I'd just discovered we're way further behind than I thought. He trusts me with our finances. He thinks I have this handled. And maybe I do have it handled now. But only because I finally asked the question I should have asked 6 years ago. The worst part isn't the number itself. The worst part is realizing I've been operating in the dark this entire time. I've been saving money without knowing if it was enough. I've been making financial decisions without understanding the actual target. I've been checking boxes on a list without knowing if those boxes even mattered. And now at 3:27 in the morning, I finally have clarity, and it's terrifying. But here's what I'm starting to realize, even through the panic. Having a number, even a scary number, is better than having no number at all. Because now I know. Now I can make real decisions. Now I can stop guessing and start calculating. $2.4 million isn't just a number. It's a finish line. It's a target. It's the truth I needed to hear. Here's a conversation I've had about 100 times in my life. Someone older, usually a parent, an aunt, a well-meaning boss, asks me, "Are you saving for retirement?" And I say, "Yes, I have a 401k." And they nod approvingly, like I just passed some adult competency test. Conversation over, box checked. Good job, Vera. But nobody ever asks the follow-up question. Nobody ever says, "Do you know how much you need?" Nobody says, "Have you calculated your actual number?" Nobody says, "What's your finish line?" Because here's what I've realized. Most people asking that question don't know their own answers either. They're just repeating the script they were given. Save for retirement, max out your 401k, don't touch it until you're 65. It's like a game of telephone where the actual meaning got lost 3 generations ago. I started contributing to my 401k when I was 24 years old. My first real job out of college offered a match, and everyone told me I'd be stupid not to take it. Free money, they said. So I enrolled. I picked some target date fund because that's what the internet told me to do. I set my contribution to 6% because that seemed responsible. And then I just let it ride. Every quarter I'd get those statements in the mail. Later they came by email. I'd glance at the number, watch it go up, feel a little dopamine hit of progress. 17,000, 23,000, 32,000, 41,000. The number kept climbing and I kept thinking, I'm doing it. I'm being responsible. I'm one of the good millennials who actually saves for retirement. But here's what I never did. I never asked what that number meant. I never compared it to what I actually needed. I never calculated if I was ahead of schedule or hopelessly behind. I was just watching a number go up and assuming that was enough. It's like training for a marathon without knowing the distance. You're running, sure, but are you running fast enough? Are you on pace? Will you actually finish? CIPHER displays. Retirement savings by age benchmarks. Holographic chart shows typical accumulation curves versus Vera's actual progress. When I finally asked CIPHER to show me where I stood, I expected validation. I genuinely thought $67,000 at 30 years old was good. Better than good, actually. I'd read articles about how most Americans have less than $10,000 in retirement savings. I'd seen the statistics about people my age being broke. I felt like I was ahead of the curve. Then CIPHER showed me the actual math. At 30 years old, planning to retire at 58, I should have had $93,000 saved to stay on track for my $2.4 million goal. I wasn't ahead. I wasn't even on pace. I was $26,000 behind, and that gap grows every single day I don't catch up. Sound familiar? Because I think this is the conversation most of us aren't having. We're all out here contributing to our retirement accounts, feeling good about ourselves for being responsible, but nobody's actually doing the math. Nobody's calculating their specific number. Nobody's checking if the path they're on actually leads to the destination they need. I called my dad last month before my 3 a.m. crisis with CIPHER. I mentioned I was thinking about retirement planning, and he gave me the same advice he's been giving me since I was 22. Just max out your 401k and you'll be fine. That's it. That's the entire strategy. Max it out. The number doesn't matter, the timeline doesn't matter, your actual needs don't matter, just max it out and trust the system. But here's what maxing out my 401k would mean. $23,000 per year. That's nearly 40% of my $62,000 annual spending. Even if I could afford that, which I can't, it would only get me to about $1.8 million by 58. Still 600,000 short of what I actually need. Maxing out isn't a strategy, it's just another piece of generic advice that sounds good but doesn't solve the actual problem. CIPHER analyzes maximum contribution scenario versus required contribution scenario. Gap visualization in holographic purple. This is the retirement conversation nobody's having. We talk about saving, we talk about investing, we talk about compound interest and tax advantages and employer matches. But we don't talk about the actual number. We don't talk about working backward from the life we want to live. We don't talk about the brutal math of inflation and longevity and healthcare costs. I spent 6 years contributing to a retirement account without knowing if it was enough. 6 years of blindly following advice without understanding the destination. 6 years of feeling responsible while potentially falling further behind. And the worst part? I'm a financial advisor. This is literally my job. I help other people plan their retiromes. And I didn't have my own number calculated until 3 a.m. on a random Wednesday. If you're sitting there right now feeling anxious because you don't know your number either, if you've been saving blindly, hoping it'll somehow be enough, you're not alone. You're not stupid. You're not irresponsible. You're just doing what everyone told you to do without anyone telling you why or how much. The system is designed to make us feel good about saving, without actually showing us if we're saving enough. CIPHER displays. Question prompt floating in cyan. What is your actual retirement number? That question changed everything for me. Not how much are you saving, not are you maxing out your 401k, but what is your actual number? Because once you have that number, even if it's terrifying, even if it makes you want to throw up at 3 in the morning, you finally have something real to work toward. You finally have a finish line instead of just running in the dark hoping you're going the right direction. Save more. That's the advice I've gotten my entire adult life. Every article, every podcast, every financial guru, save more. Increase your contributions, cut your spending, save more, save more, save more. But here's what nobody ever tells you. Save more to what? More than what? How much more is enough? I've been living in this weird financial limbo for years where I know I'm doing better than some people, but I have no idea if I'm doing well enough. I look at my $67,000 and feel proud. Then 5 minutes later I feel anxious. Is this good? Is this terrible? Am I ahead or am I screwed? The answer has always been, I don't know. And that not knowing has been slowly eating me alive. Let me tell you about the mental gymnastics I've been doing. I read an article that said the average American has less than $5,000 in savings, and I feel relieved. See, I'm doing great. Then I read another article about how you should have 1 times your annual salary saved by 30, and suddenly I'm behind. Then another article says save 10% of your income, and I'm exceeding that. Then another says you need 25 times your annual expenses to retire, and I'm nowhere close. It's this constant emotional whiplash where I can't tell if I'm winning or losing. CIPHER displays, conflicting retirement advice sources, holographic streams showing contradictory benchmarks and rules. Every piece of advice contradicts the last piece of advice. Save 10%. No, save 15%. No, max out your 401k. Follow the 4% rule. No, use the 3.5% rule because we're living longer. Have 1 times your salary by 30. No, have half your salary by 30 and you're fine. No, you need 3 times your salary by 40 to stay on track. Which one is it? Who's right? How am I supposed to plan my entire financial future when every expert gives me different numbers? And here's what really makes me want to scream. None of this advice is about me specifically. It's all generic. It's all based on averages and assumptions and people who aren't living my actual life. Maybe the 4% rule works great for someone retiring at 65 with a pension and low expenses. But I want to retire at 58. I don't have a pension. I live in an area with high costs. None of these one-size-fits-all rules actually fit me. I tried using those online retirement calculators. You know the ones. They ask you basic questions, run some algorithms, spit out a number. I've used at least 5 different ones, and they've given me 5 wildly different answers. One said I needed 1.2 million. Another said 3.1 million. Another told me I was already on track and could retire early. Another said I'd run out of money by 75. How is that helpful? How am I supposed to make real decisions when the tools designed to help me can't even agree within $1 million range? CIPHER analyzes generic calculator limitations, shows how different assumptions create vastly different outcomes. The problem with generic advice is that it makes you feel like you're doing something without actually solving anything. I've increased my 401k contribution 3 times. I've cut my Starbucks habit. Yes, I'm that cliché. I've automated my savings. I've done all the things the articles tell you to do. And I still had no idea if any of it mattered. I was checking boxes on a list without knowing if those were even the right boxes. You know that feeling when you're working really hard at something, but you have no feedback on whether you're actually making progress? That was me with retirement. I was saving money, watching the number go up, doing all the responsible adult things. But I had no benchmark, no mile markers, no way to know if I was sprinting toward the finish line or crawling at a pace that would never get me there. I remember having coffee with my friend Sarah last year. She's the same age as me, makes about the same money, lives a similar lifestyle. She mentioned she had $80,000 saved for retirement, and I immediately felt this gut punch of inadequacy. She's ahead of me. I'm behind. I'm failing. But then a month later, she told me she was stressed about retirement because she read an article saying she should have way more. So we're both anxious. We're both confused. We're both following advice that doesn't actually tell us if we're okay. Here's the really messed up part. I'm a financial advisor. People literally pay me to help them figure this stuff out. And I've been giving them the same generic advice I've been getting. Save more. Diversify. Max out your retirement accounts. Follow the 4% rule. Because that's what I was taught. That's what the industry teaches. But it's not actually answering the question people are asking. When someone comes to me and says, "How much do I need to retire?" they're not asking for a percentage or a rule of thumb. They're asking for their number, their specific, personalized, "this is what you need based on your actual life number." And until I asked CIPHER that question for myself, I wasn't giving them that answer. I was giving them the same vague reassurances I'd been accepting for years. CIPHER displays the question that changes everything, "What is your number?" glowing in cyan. Save more isn't an answer when you don't know what you're saving toward. It's like telling someone to drive faster when they don't know where they're going. You might get somewhere quicker, but is it the right somewhere? Are you even on the right road? Without a specific destination, speed is meaningless. I spent years drowning in advice that sounded smart, but meant nothing. Rules and percentages and benchmarks that made me feel alternately proud and terrified, without ever giving me clarity. And the anxiety just kept building. This low-grade constant stress about retirement that I couldn't resolve because I didn't have real information. I had vague goals and generic rules and a growing sense that I was probably screwing this up somehow. If you're sitting there right now feeling that same confusion, if you've been saving money but you have no idea if it's enough, if you've been following advice that contradicts itself, if you're tired of people telling you to save more without telling you more than what, I get it. I've been there. I am there. And here's what I finally realized. We don't need more advice. We need actual answers. The difference between asking a calculator and asking CIPHER hit me the moment I typed the question. I'd used retirement calculators before, those generic tools that ask for your age, your salary, your current savings, and spit out some number. They feel sterile, impersonal, like filling out a form at the DMV. But when I asked CIPHER, how much do I actually need to retire? It felt different. It felt like I was finally having the conversation I should have had years ago. Here's what a typical retirement calculator does. It takes your inputs, applies some standard assumptions, runs them through a formula, and gives you a number. Maybe it shows you a graph. Maybe it tells you if you're on track or not. But it doesn't explain. It doesn't walk you through the thinking. It doesn't help you understand why the number is what it is. It's like getting a diagnosis without understanding the disease. CIPHER displays. Retirement calculation framework initializing. Multiple data streams activate in holographic cyan. The first thing CIPHER did was different. It didn't just ask for numbers. It asked about my life. Not in a creepy way, but in a way that made me realize I'd never actually thought about retirement as a real thing happening to a real version of me. What's your current annual spending? $62,000. What age do you want to retire? 58. How long do you expect to live? And this is where it got real. CIPHER showed me actuarial tables for women my age and health profile. 92 years old. I could live to 92. That number stopped me cold. 92. I'd never actually thought about how long I might live. In my head, retirement was this vague thing that happened at 65 and lasted, 10 years? 15? But 34 years? That's longer than I've been alive. That's not a brief relaxation period at the end of my career. That's an entire second lifetime I need to fund. And suddenly the math started feeling very different. CIPHER analyzes life expectancy versus retirement duration. Holographic timeline shows 34-year retirement period glowing in purple. CIPHER broke it down in a way no calculator ever had. It showed me that I'm not just saving for retirement, I'm saving for 3.5 decades of living without a paycheck. 3.5 decades where I still need to eat, pay for housing, cover insurance, handle emergencies, and hopefully enjoy my life. That's not a nest egg. That's a complete parallel financial system I need to build while I'm still working. Then CIPHER did something that genuinely shocked me. It asked, what about inflation? And I was like, yeah, I know about inflation. That's factored in, right? But CIPHER showed me what inflation actually means over 26 years. It's not just that things cost more. It's that the dollar amount I need grows exponentially. If I need $62,000 today, I'll need almost double that in actual dollars 26 years from now just to maintain the same lifestyle. Here's where my brain started melting. CIPHER displayed two numbers side by side. In today's dollars, I need 1.55 million. But in actual future dollars, the dollars I'll be spending when I retire, I need 3.18 million. That's not a typo. The inflation adjustment alone adds $1.63 million to my target. And this is the kind of detail that generic calculators either hide or oversimplify with vague percentage adjustments. CIPHER displays inflation impact visualization. 1.55 million in today's dollars transforms into 3.18 million in future dollars. Holographic numbers cascade and multiply. But CIPHER wasn't done. It asked about Social Security. Do you plan to claim Social Security? At what age? And this is where I realized I'd been making assumptions without checking facts. I always assumed I'd claim at 62 because I want to retire early. But CIPHER showed me the math. If I wait until 70, my benefit jumps from $1,900 a month to $2,400 a month. That's $6,000 more per year for the rest of my life. Then it calculated the present value of those Social Security benefits. If I receive $2,400 monthly from 70 to 92, that's worth about $720,000 in today's money. That's $720,000 I don't need to save myself. That's actual money I can subtract from my target. Suddenly waiting to claim Social Security wasn't just advice from some article. It was a specific, quantifiable decision worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then CIPHER brought up something I'd completely forgotten about. Healthcare. Between retiring at 58 and qualifying for Medicare at 65, I need to pay for my own health insurance. 7 years of premiums, deductibles, out-of-pocket costs. CIPHER estimated about $26,000 per year. That's $182,000 I need to set aside just for healthcare during that gap period. $182,000 that has nothing to do with my living expenses, just staying healthy enough to reach Medicare. CIPHER analyzes healthcare cost projections 58 to 65. Holographic medical cross displays climbing expense curve. This is what calculators can't do. They can't have a conversation. They can't ask follow-up questions. They can't say, "Wait, have you thought about this?" Or, "Here's a variable you're not considering." CIPHER didn't just calculate my number. It taught me what goes into the number. It showed me all the hidden factors I'd been ignoring. It turned retirement from this abstract concept into a specific mathematical problem I could actually solve. Every question CIPHER asked revealed another layer I hadn't considered. Tax implications, investment returns, market volatility, withdrawal sequencing, portfolio allocation. Each one changed the calculation slightly. Each one made the number more accurate and more personalized to my actual life instead of some average person's theoretical retirement. By the time CIPHER finished the calculation, I understood my number in a way I never could have from a simple calculator. 2.43 million wasn't just a scary figure pulled from thin air. It was the sum of dozens of specific, logical, personalized factors. It was my current spending, inflated over time, stretched across a long life, reduced by Social Security, increased by healthcare costs, adjusted for taxes and market conditions. It was real math based on my real life. CIPHER displays. Final calculation, $2.43 million. Every component visible in layered holographic detail, and here's what changed everything. I finally trusted the number. Because I understood it. CIPHER didn't just give me an answer. It showed me the work. It walked me through the logic. It helped me see retirement not as some mysterious financial goal, but as a solvable equation with inputs I could control and outcomes I could plan for. Let me show you exactly how CIPHER calculated $2.43 million. Not because I want to bore you with math, but because understanding this changed everything for me. This is the part most people never see, the actual mechanics behind the retirement number. And once you see how it works, it stops being this scary, mysterious thing and starts being something you can actually plan for. CIPHER started with the simplest possible question. How much do you spend per year? $62,000. That's my current lifestyle. Rent, groceries, car payment, insurance, entertainment, everything. Not some inflated dream lifestyle, not some bare-bones poverty budget. Just my actual current life. CIPHER took that number and said, "This is your baseline. This is what you need to replace in retirement." CIPHER displays. Annual spending baseline, $62,000 highlighted in cyan. Then came the 4% rule. I'd heard about this before but never really understood it. Here's what CIPHER explained. If you withdraw 4% of your retirement savings each year, historically your money lasts 30 years without running out. It's based on decades of market data and withdrawal studies. So if I need $62,000 per year, I divide that by 0.04. That gives me $1.55 million. That's my base retirement number in today's money. But here's where it gets brutal. $1.55 million is what I'd need if I retired today and dollars stopped inflating. But I'm not retiring today. I'm retiring in 26 years. And over those 26 years, inflation is going to absolutely destroy my purchasing power. CIPHER showed me the compound effect of 2.8% annual inflation over 26 years. It's not simple multiplication. It's exponential growth working against me. CIPHER analyzes compound inflation calculator. 1.55 million grows to 3.18 million. Holographic numbers cascade upward in purple streams. Watch this math because it's insane. Year 1, 1.55 million becomes 1.59 million. Year 2, 1.63 million. Year 5, 1.78 million. Year 10, 2.01 million. Year 15, 2.33 million. Year 20, 2.70 million. Year 26, $3.18 million. That's what 1.55 million in today's dollars will actually cost in future dollars when I retire. The same purchasing power costs more than double. This is the part that made me want to throw up. I wasn't saving for 1.55 million. I was saving for 3.18 million. And that's just to maintain my current $62,000 lifestyle. Not to live large in retirement, not to travel the world, just to keep doing exactly what I'm doing now but without a paycheck. Then CIPHER asked about Social Security, and this is where the math finally started working in my favor instead of against me. If I claim at 70 years old, I'll receive approximately $2,400 per month. That's $28,800 per year, for the rest of my life. CIPHER calculated the present value of receiving $28,800 annually from 70 to 92. That's 22 years of benefits totaling about $633,600 in actual payments. CIPHER displays Social Security benefit valuation. Present value calculation shows $120,000 reduction in required portfolio, but the present value, what that future stream of income is worth in today's dollars, is about $720,000. That means I can subtract $720,000 from my $3.18 million target. Social Security isn't just helpful, it's covering almost a quarter of my retirement needs. This is why the claiming age matters so much. If I claimed at 62 instead of 70, my benefit would only be $1,900 monthly instead of $2,400. That $600 monthly difference is worth hundreds to thousands over my lifetime. So now we're at $3.18 million minus $720,000 equals $2.46 million. We're getting close to the final number, but CIPHER wasn't done yet. It brought up healthcare, and this is where I realized I'd been completely naive about early retirement costs. From 58 to 65, 7 years before Medicare kicks in, I need private health insurance. CIPHER estimated about $26,000 per year for comprehensive coverage. That's $182,000 just for healthcare during those 7 years. $182,000 that isn't covered by my spending calculation because it's additional to my normal budget. This is pure early retirement penalty for leaving the workforce before 65. CIPHER analyzes Healthcare Gap years 58 to 65. Holographic medical timeline shows $182,000 reserve requirement. Add that $182,000 to $2.46 million, and you get $2.64 million. But then CIPHER made one final adjustment. It factored in that I'd be withdrawing from tax-advantaged accounts, which means some of that money will be taxed as ordinary income. After accounting for estimated tax drag on withdrawals, the final number stabilized at $2.43 million. Let me break down that final calculation one more time because this is important. Start with annual spending, $62,000. Apply 4% rule, $1.55 million base. Adjust for 26 years of inflation, $3.18 million. Subtract Social Security present value, minus $720,000 equals $2.46 million. Add healthcare gap coverage, plus $182,000 equals $2.64 million. Adjust for tax efficiency. Final target $2.43 million. CIPHER displays complete calculation breakdown. Each component stacked in holographic layers, final number glows in bright cyan. Every single one of those numbers is personalized to me. My spending, my timeline, my Social Security estimate, my healthcare needs. This isn't a generic calculator giving me an average. This is the actual math of my actual retirement, based on my actual life. And understanding each component means I can adjust them. If I retire at 60 instead of 58, the number changes. If I reduce spending to $55,000 instead of $62,000, the number changes. If I delay Social Security to 72, the number changes. This is what CIPHER gave me that calculators never could: control, understanding, clarity. The number isn't handed down from some mysterious algorithm. It's built from specific, logical, adjustable components that I can see and manipulate. $2.43 million isn't a prison sentence. It's a target. And now I know exactly how it was calculated and exactly what I need to do to hit it.